All right. All right, then I'm going to record. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to SIFWA's Comics Chat for July. I'm Jessica Mason. I am a SIFWA member and I am the comics chair for our committee. I'm excited today. We are going to be talking about conventions, which I'm sure we're all working up to right now. I'm going to introduce A. Rubin, or Ari. He is also a SIFWA member and a member of the comics committee, and he partners quite frequently with our guest today. So I'm going to let him do the intro. So, Ari, go ahead.
Hi, I'm A. Rubin, as Jessica mentioned. Thank you, Jessica. SIFWA member, and I have had the pleasure of working with Buddy Scalera of Comic Book School for many years. Buddy is Buddy is a writer for Marvel Comics and also with his own independent work. And he is also the founder of Comic Book School, a free educational resource about the craft and business of comics. So without further ado, Buddy will be talking to us today about networking at conventions.
Wow. All right. That's awesome. By the way, Ari and I are sitting across from each other, even though we don't have the same background. We just got out of a comic book convention together in New York, and we dashed out of here to a relative's house where we're working in their living room. So I'm on one side of the dining room, and Ari, wave right there. We're like a couple of inches away from each other. So if there's any bounce or echo, just let us know when we can mute. So, I think today, Ari, we're going to be talking about comic book conventions, how to show up, how to be your best self. I see SFWA panel A. Should I share my screen, or what's our way of working here? I think I'm supposed to be pinned. Am I pinned?
You are pinned, and you can share your screen, I think.
I'm going to share. I'm going to find a screen to share. All right. So the screen that I'm going to be sharing, can you see it, Ari?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
Now you'll see that this is labeled as MYCC 2023. I wanted to be authentic. This was an idea that was born out of the idea that networking is really difficult. No matter, and you can see this? You can? Oh, okay. The idea is that networking is really, I guess you can see it, is really difficult, even in a professional environment like New York Comic Con, which Ari and I have been attending since the very beginning. I've been working in comics for over 30 years. And despite that, I'm an outgoing person, and I still find it difficult to connect with somebody in a random situation. And so I came up with this idea of creator connections. It was something that was just something to try. I was working for Wizard Magazine at the time, and we had to fill a lot of programming time, and I just threw everything at the wall, and this one seemed to stick. So just by way of background, this is a PDF. As Ari, or he might be showing up as A.A. Rubin noted, I did create Comic Book School. While I was at Wizard Magazine, we were trying to create online programming, and we didn't have the rights to use the educational materials that were inside of Wizard Magazine. So I called it Wizard School. And then I just had this idea that photo reference would be important to artists. After talking with some artists, you'll see in the bottom right corner of the screen, I started making CD-ROMs with photo reference. And part of the goal with these CD-ROMs was to make them as affordable as possible. These were only $10 each. You got like 500 images. At the time, that was a lot. And it long preceded being able to download images off of Google. So the first one did well. I did a second one did well, did a third. Always had educational material baked into it. When I was contacted by a publisher, and you'll see in the bottom left-hand corner there, Impact Books contacted me and said, would you like to do these as books? And I was like, I would love to. Now, if anybody's ever been published, you know how exceedingly rare it is for a publisher to contact you. It was even rarer that they actually wrote the proposal for me, and all I had to do was sign it and make the books. And the first book came out. It did very well. It seemed that people were hungry for educational materials about comic books. So I would have photo reference, and then I would have art lessons embedded in there, but also a lot of organic conversation about making comics. Now, it's not shown in this particular screenshot. Oh, it is the top right corner. It's the biggest image. Um, I had this idea that it would be useful for people to understand the complete process from ideation to publication. And that's how creating comics from start to finish was born. And really, this was the point when I started to realize I needed an infrastructure. I started to speak at Comic Cons. I was traveling. I was getting brought to other Comic Cons. And I realized, wow, this is getting to be very interesting. And it was also helping my career. And I'm going to come back to how it becomes interesting and how I got involved with Ari. But all this time I'm doing this work as a working comic book professional. So when I'm working and doing these educational panels at comic book conventions and I'm interacting, I am quite literally making my own comic books. And it was kind of important to network. And Ari had asked me a random question one day, I guess during one of the panels. He was asking about pitching. Ari's very methodical. He was asking about pitching. And I had to admit, I had never had a pitch accepted in my life. I've still never had a cold pitch accepted in my life. Every pitch that I've ever done was basically informally done through networking. And one of the best pieces of advice that I realized at the time that I've offered to Ari and to others is you can sleep another time. If you're at an after party with comic book professionals, stay till the party closes. I don't drink alcohol, but I would hang in there while people enjoyed themselves and we networked, we got to know each other. And then the next day it was totally cool to do a follow-up email, or you just made a friend. And I realized that my entire career was built on this basic concept of networking and building that network. And that 30 years in comics is purely on the relationships that I've built. I started to realize that maybe there was something to this. When the pandemic hit, I had nothing to do like everybody else. Work slowed down, although I was fortunate to stay employed. And we had this wonderful community, Ari being one of them, who's still interested in learning how to make comics. We realized the way to do this was to build a platform that allowed us to connect. So I built message boards. They're not around today, but they were a point where we could go speak freely, not be banned by any social media. And what you see there on the left is the result of Creator Connections, which was the name of the networking panel. I'll tell you a lot about that in a few minutes. But the idea was we would do 8-page stories, which were traditionally the length of stories that you would get as an assignment from an editor for Marvel or DC. So between 8 and 12 is usually your portfolio piece. As a writer, you want to show that you can do an 8-page story. It's harder than you think, right, Ari? I mean, it's tricky. 12 pages is a little bit better, but it takes a longer attention span from the editor. So we wanted to exercise the muscle of doing an 8-page story. So we did Creator Connections. It was kind of a hot mess. We didn't really know what we were doing. As a writer, I was usually working on assignment or self-publishing my own work. I really knew nothing about building an anthology. We were lucky to have Redheaded Ed, Denali. D. Alley. To go by D. Alley, and Ari and Chris Burgos and quite a lot of other very smart, motivated people during the pandemic. You see Creative Connections panel 1 there. Is a rather thick book. It exceeded our expectations. I believe of the 32 contributors, I think 26 of them, this was their first published work. As a result, you'll see there in the center bottom, we won an award from Content Marketing Institute because Comic Book School was trying to use content to progress our business. Although the business doesn't make money, so it's tough to call it a business. But ultimately, we were doing this to progress the business by building community, and we did. We won Best Anthology of 2020. We had a Best Story win. We gained momentum, and we decided, you know what? If this one was called Panel 1, the other one will be Panel 2. I was driving past a hotel, and it had a very funny name. And I said, well, the first one didn't have a theme. It was just kind of getting started. It was Panel 1. That's the first thing you do in comics. And I said, okay, everybody, we now have a theme. It's called The Time Inn. And you can see inn is spelled like a hotel or an inn. And I refused to give any further direction, much to the chagrin of perfectionists like Ari. But the idea was the time in. You get 8 pages. Well, we'll let you cheat a little bit and get 10 pages if it's necessary. And then Ari actually pioneered flash fiction for that publication because we were like, hey, you know what? There's all kinds of creators. Can we do text-based with illuminated manuscripts? And Ari not only was one of the editors in Creator Connections Panel 1, but was the editor completely of the flash fiction, and The Time In was born. What was great about this was it launched the career of quite a few people, Ari included, who has gone on to do professional work. Mike Ponce has gone on to do professional work. Philip Burnett has gone on to do professional work. So for many people, it was an expression of what they wanted to do, which was get their stories out there, and slam dunk, they did that. But for others, it was a springboard, a stepping stone, pick some sort of worn out cliche, but it did help people level up. Most importantly, it taught you how to make comics by making you make comics. Ari will tell you I can be a bit of a taskmaster. If the deadline is Friday at 5 o'clock, it's Friday at 5 o'clock. It's not 5:01. It's not Saturday. It's not I'll give it to you Monday. I treated them as professionals, and people rose to the occasion. And so we ended up with 2 wonderful portfolio pieces, which have led to launching boards. Now, we can jump right into the parts where we talk about networking and what we do, but I thought maybe I would pause here for a minute, stop sharing my screen, and see if there are any questions or anything that Ari wanted to prompt me on to keep that conversation going, because I don't have short answers, as you guys probably see. I like to talk. I like the sound of my own voice. Modesty is not listed on my resume. Ari, do you have any questions or thoughts or prompts where you'd like to go with this?
No, I think talking about what you used to teach us at those creator connection panels would be great as people are preparing to for their comm season, which is starting now. People are getting ready to go. A lot of people who are creators are more like me, more introverted than people like you, and maybe you can give us some tips and some help for how to interact with people and how to actually do that face-to-face networking that does so much work for you.
So I love this question, and I'm going to show some slides, but I'm going to give a little bit of overview, and stay on camera with me, would you? I think one of the most important things that we have to remember is networking is a cycle. It's preparation and follow-up. And most people are good with the preparation. I would say most people are not good with the follow-up. And even though we're about to talk about how we facilitate these panels, the most important thing that we try to drive home is follow-up is essential. And when I tell you about what I'm going to explain with the facilitated networking, the most important thing, and we talk about this often, and Ari is one of the people who's adhered to it most closely, and as a result has had the greatest professional results, including paid work, is this idea that you have approximately a week, give or take, to follow up with somebody. And I'll give you some tips and tricks for how that follow-up should work and roll. However, I would say 90% of people don't. I give my email freely. I'm like, now you know a working pro. Very few people follow up. Ari followed up. Ari made a name for himself. Ari continues to make his name for himself because of the follow. We met a group of people just today at the comic book convention, and I get the business card, I take a picture of it, and then I set a follow-up. I'm sure Ari does something or similar. It's a book called The Second Brain. It's got a very basic principle, Tiago something. But the idea is just to find a way of doing a follow-up. But a week is about right. After that, you're done. But the ability to have a facilitated networking is probably what was a tipping point for many, many people. And how to prepare for that is something that I'm going to tell you about right now. So let me share my screen again. Okay. So again, we call this Creator Connections. I will note at the bottom there, a not so subtle plug is for a show that I do every Tuesday live on YouTube. And if I'm being transparent, Ari inspired me, and we did an episode just this past week about prepping for a comic book convention if you're setting up for the first time. All the things you need, everything from hand sanitizer to the right kind of display to how to price your materials from beginning to end. And we're going to do one if you're not setting up a table. So if you find this interesting, that is probably really important. So as part of the introduction, typically in a Creator Connection, I will model a conversation, and I will say, here's what we are going to do. And rule number one, and it's an unbreakable rule, is you network with whoever you're introduced with. So Ari will be introduced to another writer. Or you can't go, oh, I'm a writer, I don't need to know nothing. No, stop. Just meet everybody, because you know what? You might make a friend, and making a friend who eventually becomes an editor is awesome. In fact, my first published work at Marvel was because I had a friend who became an editor at Marvel, and he was willing to listen to my pitches. Part two typically is we will show success stories from the previous year or years. Ari, much to his credit, has been able to come up multiple times and show short stories, published work, everything, including prose, just to say, this is what I did from that connection, proof that it works. Then we do the networking guide and the rules, which we'll talk about in a second. And then we do networking and happiness. So Creator Connection, here are the basic rules. Rule number one, connect with everyone. If I sense that you're not participating the way you're supposed to, I will really, get in there and say, come on, let's do this the right way. Well, I'm looking for a penciler. I get it, but you just met a letterer. You're going to need a letterer too. Connect with everyone. Exchange information with everyone. Now, exchanging information is fraught with danger, and people don't like necessarily giving out their personal information. Let me give you a piece of advice. I have a personal email that y'all don't have access to. And then I have my information that you all do have information access to, like Comic Book School. Make a separate identity for yourself. I never post about comic books on LinkedIn, but I will post about comic books on my Twitter account devoted, or my X account devoted to comic books. I have 2 Instagrams, 2 Twitters, 2 Facebooks. And that's how I'm able to safely communicate what I'm doing professionally without giving up any personal information, right? And this is not about sliding into someone's DMs. We're not here to flirt. We're here to work. So we talk about professionalism, and then we talk about that rule of following up via email within 1 week. Now, all right, I'll show you what that sample email is. Before we go any further, one of the things that we do, and Ari is often the role player with me, we will show how we interact. I will say, Ari, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I will say, Ari, I am going to connect you with Bill. Bill is a writer. Ari, you're a writer. Connect. And then we take about 10 minutes, and then we do the connection. Ari, what's it like when you get that first connection, be it a writer or an artist? What's that experience like?
You got to be able to do it very quickly in the Creator Connection setting, because you're meeting with so many other people. You need to both tell them what you do and listen to what they do and get the information that's being exchanged. And then you've got to have a way of keeping your cards or your information as you move on to the next person. And I also like to keep a notes maybe about who I
That's
really
right.
want to contact first. Even though you follow up with everyone, you got a few people who you really want to contact first, and I kind of highlight those cards or those names as well.
Well, and Ari, you've done a very good job of, and I was looking at some of your portfolio stuff just today at the convention. Ari has a very succinct elevator pitch ready. He works in multiple genres, and he's learned the art of looking at somebody's portfolio and saying, well, gosh, maybe you would be good for this YA idea that I'm working on. But you might also see an artist, and that artist is like, I really want to do a horror story. So I have a comic that I did called Apocalypse Boulevard, and I was like, oh, it's about street racers like Fast and the Furious and monsters. And I was talking to the artist, and he goes, well, I really don't like to draw cars. I go, well, we can figure out a way. What do you want to draw? He goes, well, I like monsters and I like beautiful women. And I'm like, okay, what if the monsters were beautiful women? And he goes, we can do that. And I go, but you got to learn how to draw cars. And then he found a model online, and he would be able to do these 3D models, and he would model the car any way he wanted, and then he'd draw it. He still drew it. He didn't just drop it in there, but he found these wireframes. That's networking, and that's compromise, and that's building a relationship where you say, well, what do you want to do? Well, what do you want to do? And Ari was just showing me this great YA pitch that he's putting together, where he's already worked on some of it. It's partially from his own personal martial arts background, partially YA. It's kind of a mix. And you can see where having a relationship and building a relationship, you discovered that person at Comic-Con, right?
At Comic-Con at one of your panels.
Yeah. Okay. You got to follow up. So, building that connection, and it's not only because you're going to need you have a colorist, you have a letterer, you might need an inker. And let's face it, like I said, I have a great friend who became an editor, and then when I sent him a written pitch, he rejected it. He said, just tell me your idea. And it told me the idea, and then there it was. I got the idea. So let's just show what a follow-up looks like, because I think it's kind of important, and then we'll almost be done with the slides, and then we'll open it up for dialogue. I hope people are ready with a million questions. So many, many people have not worked in a business environment where they've had to write these kinds of emails. So what I do is I say, take a picture, and I make the slides available. So to artistwriter@email.com from you, subject. Most people don't even learn how to write a subject line. Creator connection follow-up. Dear artist writer, nice to meet you at NYCC. We connected at quotation creator connection hosted by Buddy Scalera from Comic Book School. How was the show for you? Buddy suggested that we exchange links and samples. Here's my website and social media. Please share your links, samples, and ideas. Let's keep in touch. As you can see, it's not matchmaking. It's quite literally a professional conversation. Now, if you are an illustrator, it would be extremely wise for you to have a place where you can exhibit your work. If you use Adobe, you might use Behance. If you have WordPress, you might put WordPress. You can put it on Pinterest. Doesn't really matter. But what I don't want is a 20 megabyte PDF of your artwork. What I want is clear, consistent pages that show what you want to be drawing. I don't mind if you can draw like Frank Miller, John Byrne, George Perez, Jeff Smith, and all these different. Pick the style that you want to be known for, and give me 8 to 10 pages, 8 to 12 pages of that. Similar to similar thing with a writer. If you go to Ari's website, you'll see a very clear writer's website. This says, I'm a writer. I'm taking this seriously. Here are links to my work. I think you use like Linktree or something, right?
The flow code.
Yeah. So those are the kinds of things that an artist goes, hey, this guy's serious. He's got his stuff together. And then you exchange examples. You might decide, oh, we're going to switch to WhatsApp. We're going to switch to whatever the medium is. The most important thing is being clear about that follow-up. Now, if you meet me at a con, like this weekend, somebody met me at a con, was like, oh, can we follow up? What I had them do was with their phone, take a selfie with the two of us, not with my phone, with their phone. And I said, when you follow up with me, send that picture because I'll remember you visually. But if you're like, oh, I was the guy with the mustache, I'll be like, yeah, I'm not going to remember that. And we met your artist, Mario. Well, I know Mario now, but it'd be easier if Mario sent a picture. So I don't do it with my phone. It might be creepy if I took a picture of you, but I want you to feel comfortable taking a picture of me. So when I'm exhibiting and I say, follow up with me, don't be afraid to take out that selfie camera and send a picture. And then when you do, send me your art. Like Mario's going to send me his art. I want to see a link and I want to see variety and I want to see that you're doing the work. Writers, I want to see, if I'm an artist, I want to see, would this guy write a cool story that I would want to read? Will he be flexible? That's the most important thing. And you're seeing if you can work well together. All right, what are your thoughts?
I think that's a really interesting idea because meet a lot of people, especially on a big show. You meet so many people, and it's hard to place them sometimes. Because I think, that's why sometimes I also make the notes about, remember we talked about this, or we talked about this idea or that idea, because that might be more specific. But I think the picture idea is good, and I really have to do that more.
Yeah,
something I don't do, which I should.
You should, right? And you're in a professional environment. You do it in a cool way, and you tell them why you're taking the picture. So I don't really have any more slides, but so a couple of additional things. So imagine you're an artist and you want your work seen. If it's on your iPad, that's fine. Your iPhone, not great. Have it organized. Don't have a gallery where you have to have me flipping around. Don't just show me covers unless you are going to be a book cover artist, which is fine, but it's unlikely you're going to get work as a comic artist just doing covers because there's so many artists who are already established doing that. Have your stuff organized. Be ready to show if you can draw in multiple styles. Very succinct. Don't draw anything in real time. Don't say, I drew this last night. I don't care. Be ready for the follow-up question. How long did it take for you to draw this? Be honest. If an editor likes your work and you say, oh, I drew this overnight. Okay, well, that's your pace. Then that's what you've just committed to. This is a job interview. You've got to be honest and under commit and over deliver. So have your stuff ready. As an artist, not only should you have a link, you should have printouts of your work with your contact information on every page. I've seen people do a single 8.5 by 11 mock-up of thumbnails with their name, their email address, and a short URL for their website. That's the best portfolios I've ever seen. I don't want 12 pages of black and white photocopy that I got to now carry back on an airplane, especially if I'm traveling. As a writer, much harder, much, much harder. The only way you're going to get work is to do what Ari's doing. You're going to do a short story or a longer story, and you're going to put it in the hands of an editor. And that's it. You don't have much else to go on. You can give people your business cards, but what are they going to do? They're going to randomly go, oh, writer that I haven't read. But if they get writer that I have read, and if you give somebody something and you say, would it be okay if I followed up the next time I had something published, and they give you their business card, now you're gold. That is proper networking. You're not being pushy. If the person says no, fine. You can still find a way to them. But what Ari is doing also then is able to follow up later with a PDF and go, hey, I gave you a copy. Or they'll say, I don't want a copy. I don't want to carry anything home. Can you email it me? You're probably not going to email it. You maybe put it on a Dropbox so they have the link. Nobody really wants a 20 megabyte download. And then the same thing with the artist. So the key thing is networking is trying to keep a dialogue going that is mutually respectful. Obviously, the person who in this particular case might have more experience than you because they're editors or they are people who can hire you. But you want to act in a mutually respectful way, not just to them, but to literally everybody. Everybody that you meet, even if they never work with you or give you work or you give them work, we're here for the love of comics. Right, Ari?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're off camera. Okay, there you are.
And Buddy, can you talk a little bit more about because you know everyone on here is a writer on this chat about how to approach editors at cons or how to set up those meetings, um, get those face to faces with editors and publishing people?
Yeah, I mean, I have to tell you, it was different when I was breaking in 30 years ago. Editors used to go to the shows, and you could sometimes, yeah, I mean, there was email then. You could sometimes email somebody and say, "Hey, when will you be at the booth? Can I come by at 2:05 just to say hi?" And you keep the conversation casual. And 99% of the time, you're not going to pitch them there. What you want is permission to send a follow up. You might say, I have a high concept idea with Bobby Drake Iceman and Warren Worthington Angel. And they're going to be in the Savage Land. And they'll be like, oh, we're doing something with the Savage Land. And they'll be like, oh, that's cool. What else you guys looking for? Oh, well, I'm looking for this, that, and the other thing. Huh. If I hit you with an idea, would you be open to it? Yeah. Hit me with an idea. Much harder to do that because most of the time now editors are not there. And when they are there, often they're already having meetings with the established creators that they're there to meet. Sometimes you can luck out and meet somebody. Sometimes you can luck out and get them on social media. Majority of the time, as writers, we are going to get in by making something that is small and digestible, that is going to be mailed to them or emailed as an attachment or as a link. And that is, you're just playing the numbers at this point. Like any kind of pop culture, you need to get a couple good reviews, get some buzz. If you do a Kickstarter and it funds, great. You want to let people know that. They are in tune with the industry. You get a little bit of coverage on Bleeding Cool. It's going to help you. Those are the ways that writers will get in. You can also burn yourself out of the industry as well, right? Being in a highly charged political world on social media, country is pretty evenly split. If you start going down that road, you could talk yourself out of a job. Think about what you want to do to present yourself and your work as the most important thing. And that's why sometimes setting up a separate account is the best thing you can do. But be aware, the industry has changed. It will continue to change. But there is only really one rule with a writer, which is you just have to be able to prove that you're going to do it. It's going to take a chance on somebody who doesn't have something to show that they can read. And the majority of editors do not have time. But on that chance that they do, if your stuff is there, they might be like, I got to find somebody to write this Savage Land story. I remember that guy, Ori. Let me just take a quick glance. And they go, oh, that's pretty good. That's how you're going to get your shot. The other way is, obviously, if you can collaborate with somebody who is established, Ari, you and I might collaborate on something. They see your name, but they know me. So they're like, oh, there's a halo effect. So we do something together and we begin to move on, and then you go your way and I go my way. I think that's how Mark Millar broke in by writing in as second writer to Grant Morrison on Swamp Thing, right? So you kind of work your way in. The rules of the game have changed, so you're going to have to self-publish. A small ash can is better than nothing.
I think we're coming up on the time anyway, but if we wanted to talk a little bit, I know you go around Artist Alley a lot, about how you what you look for and how you interact with artists in Artist Alley at a con. How you do it? Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I look at everybody's work, and I'm making a mental note. Somebody might have a nice art style. So the artist that we were talking with had a nice art style. His is more appropriate for the YA vision that you have, but that guy can really tell a story. And I let him know I'm working on a pitch for a crime noir, modern day, looking for somebody who wants to do that. Now I floated it to him. He didn't seem to be like, oh, I can draw like that. Let me show you that. But he was like, I might know some people. There are times where I will literally see somebody and I'll say, look, I like what you're doing. And here, as a fellow writer, I will tell you, I am no longer comfortable working with artists for free for co-ownership, because that's hard to stay motivated or keep people motivated. So I will say, and this is, you can use this, but transparently, I'll say, I can afford to pay you this amount of money because this is the amount of money I've allocated. Or as Ari has heard me say, this is my threshold for pain. So I am willing to pay you this much money. You may be worth more than that. In fact, you probably are worth more than that. The amount of money that you are going to get from me probably isn't worth it. However, I will assure you of two things. Number one, if I agree to pay you and you turn your pages in, I will pay you. And number two, if we do this, it will come out. I'll complete the other things. And then I say, Google me. See if anybody has a complaint about me out there. And then I endeavor to find people that I like. Now, there's been a few times where I've seen people and I've said, that person's not there yet. You know what? Follow up with me. That works for an artist. It doesn't work for a writer. Like if you write something, I read 700 pages of your work and I'm like, okay, that was terrible. I'm not reading the next 700 pages just in case you got better. Right. So writers, there's no margin of error or forgiveness. So you better be great. So don't put out your first story. Don't even put out your second story. Make sure that stuff's really good. But I'm looking for artists and I'm walking around and I'm saying, where does that person have potential? And could we build a relationship? And then I will build a professional relationship with them. And that's how you eventually get the person you want. By the way, the person that did Apocalypse Boulevard, my website's a mess. It's out there. The guy was not ready when I first found his work. But by the time he had worked on a series of other projects, he was phenomenal. Now I can't even afford him. But he's great. He's what a wonderful success story. I wish I could still afford him. If you're watching, Donnie, I wish I could still afford you. But yeah, I'm still looking for artists just as I was today. And I think your guy, Mario, might be able to hook me up with somebody who can draw my crime noir story.
All right.
I'm gonna come in now. I just wanted to say, buddy, thank you so much for the presentation. Ari, thank you as well. I'm going to stop the live stream, but I want to give both of you a chance to let people know where they can find you and follow up.
You go first.
I'm A. Rubin. I am on, I mean, there's so many platforms now, but if I am on it, I am at the Surreal Art. On anything that I am on, it's an old joke from way back when Twitter started that no one gets anymore, but I'm stuck with it and I try to keep it consistent across every platform that I'm on.
You can find him as the Surreal Ari everywhere. And you can find me everywhere at Comic Book School. The most important is the website, comicbookschool.com. And you can see us talk about the craft and business of making comics every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. Show's been going now almost for 2.5 years. And we're just gaining steam. We're just getting there.
All right, great. Thank you again. And just hold on and we will continue the conversation.